Hello! Welcome to my LTC of the Binding Blade tutorial. It seems to have been too daunting of a task for the rest of the community, but I'm ready and willing to take on this challenge. The victory condition is to get Roy to seize the throne. As such, we have to time out Roy's movement so that he gets to the throne as soon as possible, as well as defeat the boss in time. As one might expect of such a high quality unit in the main game, Boris serves as quite the tough boss, and defeating him by the time Roy reaches the throne is a big ask. While Boris is the boss in the gameplay, the true boss of tutorial is actually Cecilia, who spouts unskippable dialogue about how to move the cursor, how to initiate attacks, and essentially everything else you could possibly need to know to interact with the game at an extremely basic level. Oh, and you better not ever deselect a unit, or else you have to click through Cecilia's text explaining what that unit should do all over again. Anyways, Roy can technically be the boss killer if you rig a rapier crit, but you get a more consistent boss killer turn 5 that doesn't cost any turns. So until then, Roy just needs to hold forward. As another benefit of not being the boss killer, he can actually afford to hold back a couple of spaces, which is nice as he can attack the first soldier on player phase and go for a crit. He doesn't strictly need this crit, but he does need to avoid getting hit by 1 in 5 attacks, and this is a way to improve his chances of success. Turn 3, Wolt shows up. As Cecilia suggests, his job is to visit the village, but other than that, all he contributes is being part of a rescue trick, which just requires him to have more than 4 constitution. This makes Wolt extremely replaceable in this instance, but more on that later, as Cecilia must remind us that Wolt's bows can attack at 2 range, and repeats this every time you select him. Eventually it gets to the point where I'm like, yes Cecilia, I know Wolt can attack the soldier at 2 range, I know! Trust me, I like Wolt, but this is just not his moment. At least this is followed up by Cecilia throwing out an absolutely iconic line. Now she will tell us about the most powerful weapon we have. Not the rapier, not rescue drop, but information. Thanks, Cecilia. Almost thought you were going to actually say something useful for a second. Turn 4, Roy holds back a space yet again to force the archer to move to a better position. Now is when Wolt visits the village for the vulnerary, which wouldn't be needed if you rigged enough dodges for Roy, but it is useful for increasing consistency, and in a world where inventories get carried over from the tutorial to the main campaign, the extra resource would be nice. Too bad this doesn't happen though. Truly, this is what is holding Binding Blade back from being a perfect game. Once Lilina shows up on turn 5, we have our consistent boss killer. By moving full move, she can reach Boris in 3 turns, but Roy can reach the throne a turn earlier, so we can save a turn if we can get Lilina a few extra squares of movement. This can be done by performing an incredibly complex and unprecedented strategy of rescuing Lilina with Wolt, then having Roy take and drop her, netting 3 spaces forward. Shocking, I know. This is where basically anyone could replace Wolt and still avoid rigging a rapier crit with Roy, as the only units that can't rescue Lilina are each able to deal enough damage to Boris to contribute to the boss kill in place of the rescue trick. The only units that would perform worse than Wolt are Ellen, Wendy, and ironically enough, Boris himself. Ellen doesn't have the constitution to rescue Lilina, and as a cleric she can't attack at all. Boris and Wendy have the constitution to perform the rescue trick, but to get the maximum distance, their 4 movement means they wouldn't be able to get the village, and Roy would have to dodge an additional attack to compensate for not being able to heal with the vulnerary. Wolt is a good unit though, so he can perform the rescue trick that Lilina needs to get into 1 range of Boris by turn 6, dealing half his health on enemy phase, and finishing on player phase. This gets around the healing Boris gets for being on the throne at the start of enemy phase, which is good because not only does Wolt not deal as much damage as Boris heals, but he does no damage at all. Here we can see that if Wolt were replaced by Lou, Ray, Sophia, or even Fa, he and Lilina would be able to team up for the boss kill on the final player phase, meaning Lilina wouldn't have needed to reach Boris on the previous turn. Laylam also doesn't have the con to rescue Lilina, but she of course could just dance for her. Even the knight, Barth, could kill Boris here, albeit with a slightly different approach. With only 4 movement, Lilina would have to hold back 1 space to have the rescue trick performed on her, only netting 2 spaces forward in total. This is still enough to let her attack Boris at 2 range on both turn 6 and 7. With the healing from the throne taken into account, the knights just have to do 2 damage to defeat Boris. Barth has the necessary strength for this, so he's still just as capable as Wolt. At base though, Boris would be unable to damage himself, and the same can be said for Wendy. This makes her, Boris, and Ellen the only units that could replace Wolt and drastically decrease the odds of success. With Boris defeated, Roy is then able to seize. My clear ends up being a turn faster than if you were to play the map as Cecilia directs you to, proving once and for all that Cecilia is just as bad of a unit as Boris and Wendy. And that concludes my LTC of the Binding Blade tutorial, completed in 7 turns. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing, and let me know if there's another challenging Fire Emblem map you'd like to see me tackle next. Thanks for watching!